The White House says tariffs on Canadian imports will be imposed tomorrow. CP24's Sija Liu joins us live with the latest details and reaction. What do we know so far, Sija?
Hi, Arda. Well, there is no more confusion. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed this news today, saying that President Donald Trump will be imposing 25% tariffs on Canadian imports beginning on Saturday. And for more reaction to this, I'm joined by Tapp, Chief Economist. Stephen, you have been doing extensive research into the economic impacts of these tariffs. Now that they are a reality, take us through your findings and how our economy will feel the impacts.
Well, I just caution we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but you're right. The threat is very real and has been in the air since Trump was elected. The research we've been doing at the Canadian Chamber suggests that if Donald Trump imposes the tariffs and if they're in place for a certain amount of time at a high level, that would effectively be very difficult for Canada's economy. But the more important part of the research that we're doing is also to show that the impacts would be pretty significant for American consumers and American businesses, and would also be difficult in terms of their overall living standards.
And economists have said, consumers will be feeling the impact when it comes to their wallet. And in your research, it found that the economic impact per person is estimated at around $1,900 per Canadian. Take us through how you got to that number and what it means for Canadian wallets.
Yeah, so the $1,900 number is an estimate for the Canadian side on the impact of the tariffs, and we have a similar estimate for the U.S. side, about $1,300 U.S. In terms of American lost purchasing power. Effectively, we do a lot of trade between Canada and the U.S. A lot of that trade is business inputs, and putting a tariff on the border would increase costs for businesses. They would pass those costs on to consumers, and so everything that across the board would be considerably more expensive in an environment with a 25% tariff.
As well, with the Premier even saying before that 500,000 jobs could be lost in Ontario. How quickly do you expect us to see some jobs being cut because of these tariffs?
Yeah, the job impacts are quite concerning. On the Canadian side of the border, we have done some more detailed analysis looking at where the jobs are at risk. There's a lot of jobs looking at where you folks are in southwestern Ontario, a lot of trade that crosses the Ambassador Bridge and Canada-US autos and manufacturing and others. So there are some concerns that jobs will be lost relatively quickly. I think the bigger question would be the duration of the tariffs, how broadly they're applied, and whether the retaliation that could come from Canada's government would be significant to put some pressure on the U.S. to remove those tariffs.
And what industries do you expect would be hit the hardest right now? The White House hasn't confirmed if there are going to be any exemptions or anything of that sort.
Yes, the modeling we've done suggests that the biggest impact would be on the energy sector. So Canada sends a lot of oil across the border, and so oil and natural gas would be, in terms of value of trade exposed, is the biggest measure. And second on the list would be the auto sector. So there's obviously a lot of cross-border coordination that happens as car parts are moving back and forth. So the biggest sectors that we see hit would be energy. There are discussions, as you mentioned, to exempt energy, and so for the areas that if exemptions are given in certain areas, the impacts would be lessened in those areas. But definitely the higher level impacts of the results that we have would be quite a significant shock for Canada's economy, but also quite a significant shock and increase for American consumers and hurt their businesses as well.
Absolutely, and we are following this ever-developing news. Stephen Tapp with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, thanks so much for your time today and for your research.
Thanks for inviting me.
Sija. Thanks so much, Arda. We'll send it back to you for now.
Thank you so much for that, Sija.